Welcome back into the Ohio MMA podcast. I am your host, David McKinney. Joining me on today's episode, undefeated amateur fighter, the unbreakable Brayden Benson. What's up, Brayden?
How you doing, man? Thanks for
Uh,
having me.
yeah, of course, man. I'm excited to have you on. I follow MMA pretty closely in the Ohio area, and your name popped up just a couple of months ago. I think your first fight was in July. We're now in October,
Yep.
and you're 3-0, man. That's a pretty crazy pace.
Yeah,
Take me through the first couple fights of your career, and of course, getting the big win this past weekend down in Kentucky.
of course. Yeah. So just started training MMA full time in March. I wrestled in college for the last 2 years. Wrestled from 7th grade up, so about 8 or 9 years of wrestling. And I've always wanted to do MMA my entire life before I even found wrestling. 6 years old, I had a Dan Henderson autograph picture. My uncle and dad took me, and I met him in person and had that framed and signed on my wall for till I was 18 years old. I think it's in storage now. I got to find that. But I've wanted to do it my entire life. So in March, I just kind of started coming to this gym and got to the point where I was like, I should really start doing this full time. I started seeing potential and started off with my MMA coach, Gary Young, at Demolition Fight Team. Started me off with boxing and just wanted me to get comfortable with my hands and really starting to transition because for somebody who never trained jiu-jitsu and only has a wrestling background, my jiu-jitsu is picking up very fast, kind of on the fly. And we just wanted to get those hands right. And I feel like we did a really good job at that in a short amount of time. So come June, we started looking for fights, had a couple of turn downs, and then July 6th, got my first fight. That first fight, it was my gym hosted it. So it was about 45 minutes away. So it was good. I was close to the place. Guy was apparently has a little bit of a karate background, kickboxing and stuff like that. So I remember throwing a right hand, and that hit him. He had his hand up, but it kind of hit him. Glove kind of slipped through, and he went to clinch up with me and turned his back to me, actually. So as a wrestler, you know what I mean? I've been wrestling for 9 years, and if you give me your back, you're getting put on your head. So I took that opportunity, and that fight kind of finished with a ground and pound, and that was my only fight where I really utilized wrestling at all. And I believe they ruled it TKO. I don't know. I believe they ruled it as TKO. And that was 1 minute and 38 seconds. So that was a quick fight. I didn't take a single strike. And most of the time was on the ground, and it was with me doing the ground and pound, and finishing the fight. So I took no damage in that. So my coach was like, hey, ECC Cage Wars, Nightmare Promotions. They got a guy open next week. And he was like, you want to fight again? And I was like, hell yeah. I mean, I didn't take a single strike. Let's build a resume and let's build it fast,
Yeah.
And so we took that fight the very next weekend. The crazy thing about it is my first fight was at 185 pounds. This fight was at 170 pounds. So I actually had to cut. It was 16 pounds in 6 days. It was in Kentucky. So even at the amateur level with Kentucky, it's day before weigh-in. So it was a Friday night weigh-in. I cut all that weight off. Actually felt very good going into the fight. Even the weight cut, I didn't get too tired. And I'm starting to get in this system too, where my diet is very clean and very perfect. I'm loading up on about 1.5 gallons of water every day. So came to that last day, and that last 5-6 pounds just came off. I mean, it didn't cut. It sucked. It's a weight cut. You know what I mean? But it came off a lot easier than I had anticipated it to. I thought it was going to be a lot more of a struggle. And I came, and like I said, a day before weigh-in. So I checked my weight before we came to the event the next day for the fight, and I was 184 pounds. So I put on 14 pounds in just about 24 hours. So, I came in that fight very, very, very full and feeling good. Like I'm a wrestler, like I said, so I'm used to 7 a.m. weigh-ins, and then you turn around, you're wrestling 2 hours later. So you don't want to bloat yourself either. So you don't really put all that weight back on. So this was the first time after a weigh-in, I'm like, I don't even feel like I cut weight. And I came in. I remember he came in and he feinted a jab and went to try to throw a little uppercut to the body. And I just took a step back, came back in, and I threw a 1-3-2. And my coach likes to call it, when that happens, you give them he got happy feet. So he kind of, stumbled back, and And I was like, oh, he's already that already hurt him. And kind of, and that fight, and that's one thing where I'm starting to learn now. I stay very technical until I know somebody's hurt. And that's the mistake I did not make in this last fight, but in this fight especially, I stayed super technical, hit him with that first combo, and I saw he was kind of like all rocked, and I knew he didn't want to be in there anymore. So I just kind of went and unloaded and just kind of, it looked a little bit street fighty, a little bit too much like it's a street fight. You know what I mean? And that was the big thing my coach was saying, like when you know somebody's hurt, you know, once we get to a professional level or even a higher level in professionals, like you're going to hurt guys, right? But they're not just going to ball up all the time and continue to get hit. They're still going to look to strike. So at all times, you know, stay protected. And my coach always says controlled chaos. So, you know, just stay in their face, but at the same time, you're still being technically sound and making sure you're always protected. And that was the big thing I was taken into this second fight. And this fight was against Nate Doss. He's got 2 solid wins against 2. One was an undefeated opponent, 3-0 guy, I believe. 2-0 or 3-0 guy was the last one he had. He had 1 loss on his record. Actually wrestled for an NAIA school in New York. So has a wrestling background. And he was going around for the whole month up until the fight, telling the promoter and everybody else that, you know, his wrestling was a whole lot better than mine. And I guess he spent 6 months in Thailand, kickboxing and training at a Muay Thai gym in Thailand, and got back a few months ago and then took the fight with me. And so I came in, this is the thing. I wish I would be able to showcase my cardio a little bit more, because I feel like my cardio is very good and I haven't been able to really be battle tested yet. And that's what I want to be able to do soon. You know, we don't want to take damage, right? But I want to prove to people that, you know, I'm not just looking out to knock somebody out and burn it all out in that first round. I can go with that pace for 3-5 rounds. That last fight was 5 rounds. So I came into that fight, you know, I'm ready for 5 rounds. Coach was every weekend up until the fight, we're doing gauntlets, you know, 25-minute goes. I have Dylan Budka in my gym, Matt Comer, really good fighter, Quentin Richards, and these guys are in my gauntlets every day. So, you know, I got battle tested up until the fight. I just wasn't able to show that chin, because I know I can take a punch and I know I can give one, and I don't get discouraged when I take a punch. You know what I mean? I come right back in your face. And that's what I'm really trying to prove. And I've yet to take like a solid significant strike to my face yet. So in my future fights, I'm just looking to, you know, prove that, you know, I can go the distance too. It's not just, you know, 1 or 2 minutes I have of that pace. It can go on for a very long time, keep a very good pace. In that second fight, I noticed that, so we came in, touch gloves, hits me with a really solid leg kick right off the jump and just cracked. Like I felt it all the way up through my body. And I was like, and that was a good kick. Second kick, he comes in, we kind of, you know, we both throw a little, I think I threw a 2-3 and he tried to double jab and then throw an overhand. And then he goes to throw another kick. Well, when he threw this kick, I kind of noticed that he was shallow. And, you know, when you throw kicks, you always want to, at least if you're not going to throw a combo, you're going to at least, you know, find your range so that you're not super close throwing that kick and then you're getting blasted in the face. Well, I noticed when he threw that second kick, he didn't really close that range very much. And I kind of read that. I was super happy with myself that I was able to have the IQ already to, you know, pick that up and see that. And I was like, okay, if he kicks shallow like that again, I'm coming in with a jumping hook. So 5 seconds later, he threw, I believe it was a hook cross at me, and I came back over top with a right hand. That kind of like sent him backwards a little bit. I don't really think it hurt him too much. I think it just kind of like threw him back. And then he backs up, and then I start rushing and I throw another straight, and he threw that same shallow kick again. So I was like, oh, this is it. And I jumped right into that kind of like a leaping hook, like a left hook, just jumped into it. And I didn't realize how bad that hit him. I thought the right hand was what really put him down, but he got knocked out from the left hook. And then I threw another right hand on the way down, and that just really that put him out. So that was just a 24 seconds. Me and my coach were talking about it. It's kind of funny. You know, I've driven for 2 fights to Kentucky now, 18-hour drives, 18-hour drive total, 9 hours there and back for the first fight, 9 hours there and back for the second fight, for a total of 44 seconds in the cage.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. It's funny when you think about it like that.
Yeah, man. You make my job easy. I asked you one question. I think you answered all my questions that I had. So I got to come up with some more. But I mean, let's go back. So you got started in MMA, and I always think it's interesting because you always hear people have the wrestling background or kickboxing or whatever, but you actually started wrestling with the mindset that you wanted to get started into MMA. And I think you were wrestling in college and then decided, now it's time to
I'm
go
20 years old,
100% into MMA. Do you feel like you're kind of that part of that new generation where fighters who grew up watching UFC, watching local guys, and you had your eye on MMA from from the get go?
Mhm.
Do you feel like that gives you a little bit of an advantage as also being a really young guy?
Oh, yeah, 110%. And I would have started MMA so much younger. I grew up with a single mom. She was a server and waitress all my childhood. So my mom tried multiple times. I want to go to this boxing gym. I want to go to this MMA gym and try this out. But they're always pretty expensive. You know what I mean? Especially the nicer places. So, for us, it was just more so is like we kind of have to focus on those school sports, right? So then, obviously, what's a school sport? Wrestling. So that's where wrestling kind of picked up. But you know, I feel like it definitely puts me ahead because I've always, from like 8 years old up, like I've always watched MMA, and I feel like I knew combos and I knew a lot of things for somebody who had never done MMA up until March. And I'm from Grove City, Ohio, and Columbus, so I went to Grove City BBJ a little bit last summer, trained there a little bit, but outside of that, I have no training. But I grew up, knowing I always wanted to do it, so I feel like it definitely puts me a little bit of a step ahead.
Yeah. So what made you decide on you're originally from Central Ohio and now you're training at Demolition, which is in Findlay, so an hour and a half, 2 hours away. I mean, now you wrestled at Tiffin. Is that kind of the where you got the connection to Demolition, or did you just see, hey, this is a good gym that's producing a ton of fighters, or what's the connection there with Demolition?
Yeah. So, like I said, I'm actually enrolled at school still here at Tiffin University. I wrestled here for the last 2 years, still super close with the coaches. I'm still going to go in, I'm going to help. I love that team and I love those guys. So I'm still going to go in there twice a week. And, unless I'm in fight camp and, wrestle and train with those guys. And, everybody knows that I've always wanted to do MMA here, even before I even started training it. Like, all my friends that hang out with me enough, they know that I wanted to do that. So Charlie Cleveland, he's a 3-0 heavyweight, and he's a beast. He's a beast himself. He's got a title fight November 27th in Erie, Pennsylvania. But yeah, he's actually dating one of my friends on the girls wrestling team. So I would see her every day in the room, and she just walks up to me one day, and she was with Charlie, and just, hey, Charlie's MMA gym, if you want to come try it out, like, you can definitely come with us, catch a ride with us. And it just kind of started there. I walked into the gym and met Gary, and I actually, first day I did live jiu-jitsu grappling with Dylan and a couple other guys in the gym, and coach was just like, wow. Like, he's like, you ever trained jiu-jitsu? And I was like, no, I didn't have any submissions yet, but I could take the back real well and wrap up the chokes and stuff like that. And I was for somebody who had never trained jiu-jitsu, again, very defensively sound. Like, I wasn't getting caught in submissions and stuff like that. Whereas you see sometimes wrestlers will come in new and they'll put themselves in positions that are okay in wrestling. But in an MMA fight or in jiu-jitsu, it's getting you put in an arm bar, or it's going to get you put in a triangle choke. I picked up very fast that, sense of just, staying tight and together, especially when you're passing guard and stuff like that, not getting that arm extended and things like that. So yeah, it kind of just started there. And Coach Gary was like, yeah, you can be a real problem. And he never tried to influence me one bit at all. And I always say this about him. My coach is a great guy. Never one time told me, like, you can't really focus on MMA if you're going to be wrestling. It was completely me, after that debut, and especially that second fight, I was like, I love wrestling. It's my first love. You know what I mean? I started with it, but there's no feeling like, feeling that 4-ounce glove, connect with somebody's jaw. Like, it's not like hitting a double leg in a wrestling match or hitting a big move. That's a good feeling in itself, but it just, it's a little bit different. So, and I think I love that feeling. So
Yeah, that's the thing I've always kind of admired about Gary is that he has he had a fighting career himself, but also as a coach, he realizes that you can't be cookie cutter as a coach. You've got to figure out what, coach each fighter individually, and
Mhm.
that's been really successful for guys where, some people he'll bring along slowly. Some guys it's like, hey, you can have 10 fights in a year because you're not getting injured, and he takes it on a case by case basis. And that's one thing that's interesting. So you mentioned a couple times you train a lot with Dylan Budka, and having a UFC fighter in the same gym as you, I feel like has to be, a huge advantage because you can kind of you can test yourself every single
Yeah.
day, right? To see where that level is. But also from the same standpoint of like Dylan had kind of the same, almost exact same beginning as you, where his was because of COVID, but he, it was in school and wrestling and then found the gym. And he had, I think it was like 10 fights in a year. And now you're maybe not on that pace, but 3 fights
We're
in
gonna
3
get there.
months. But do you kind of see that a little bit of like, hey, there's a path there that maybe you don't have to take the exact same path as him, but you can see where he's gone, and that
Learn
gives you
from
a bit
him.
of inspiration.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like that's why me and Dylan, we kind of click. Me and Dylan are super close, especially for the short amount of time. Like I consider him to be like a brother to me. You know what I mean? And very similar stories. Like it's funny when I told Gary, I was like, hey, coach, I think I'm gonna talk to my wrestling coach. I want to be all in on this. And he was like, he talked to me and gave me that speech. I'm never gonna tell you not to give away a scholarship or anything like that. But if this is what you want to do, I'm ready for you and I'm fully here to support you. And he calls Dylan over and he says, what did I tell you? And he's like, I had this same exact conversation with Dylan 3 years ago. And he was like, and he's like, and now I'm here, you know what I mean? And he's like, it's surreal. It's almost like a movie, like exactly what we talked about is exactly what's happened. So just seeing that, it gives me a little bit more like motivation to like, see like, oh, wow, he went through a very similar stage of life as me at 20 years old, and jumped into this and, look where he's at now. And that's where I want to be. I got a mom. I want to retire by 50 that, has given me the world for the last 20 years and still helps me to this day. So I just want to repay her back for everything. So seeing him and having somebody like him, especially like, for example, we have a UFC PI trip where Dylan's taken 6 or 7 of our guys and coach to Vegas to stay at the hotels and just be on the strip and at the PI and train there from December 18th to the 22nd. So like just opportunities like that. Like, yeah, it's definitely not as it only a motivator. It's definitely, I feel like it gives me more opportunity. You know what I mean? Like I'm training with a guy that's already at that point, you know what I mean? And he's always reposting my stuff and stuff like that and texting me before fights, helping me in the gym and stuff like that. So having a guy like that, especially with a very similar background to me is it's very awesome. And it's kind of almost weird. Like we talked about it multiple times. Like it's funny, small
Yeah.
world.
Yeah, and you mentioned your team, and Demolition is always, of course, a very deep team. And I saw you guys actually went 6-0 at the ECC show. So, what's it like being on a fight card where I don't even know how many fights there were, but I think there was like 9,
80.
maybe 10,
There's
8, something
80,
like
yeah.
that. And you guys went 6-0. That's pretty impressive,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. So actually, one of them was just a grappling match. So in MMA, there was, I believe, 4 grappling matches, and we had one guy grapple, and he had a guillotine in the first 2 minutes, and then we had 5 guys fight out of the 8 fights. So 5-0 in fights is the gym, and 1-0 in grappling, 6-0 total. It's pretty crazy. And me and coach were talking. He's like, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to have this many guys fight at this card again. Like these guys here aren't going to want to fight our guys. Like, you know what I mean? Especially Aaron Mock, another guy in our gym. And I train with him a lot too. He's now 1-1. He's got a guy he lost to is real good. Took a really good fight short in his career, but he's a beast, man. He came out and, the guy, same kind of situation, just threw a shallow kick and Aaron just came right over top with the right hand, gets behind him and suplexes him on his head. Or on kind of upper back on his neck, and guy was unconscious from that, and then just puts up an armbar. I've never seen a quicker armbar in my life. It was 15 seconds. So when you see guys like that on our team, it's like, man, these guys, whatever they're doing something right. You know what I mean? So it's awesome too to be a part of a team like that. You know what I mean? It's always better when everybody wins rather than having like one guy that lost. You know what I mean? And then everybody else is kind of celebrating, but not trying to like shove it in the other guy's face. So it was really cool to have all 6 of our guys win. It was a real cool car ride home, even though I was the one driving after fighting. And I drove. Coach was like, if you would have gone to the second or third round, I would have drove us home. But because you use 20 seconds, you can drive. I was like,
Next fight, you're going to go to decision. You can nap the whole way home.
Yeah, I'm going to do it on purpose now. I can take a nap on the way home at least. I got home at freaking 5:30 in the morning.
That's great.
But it was worth it. Beautiful. They're pretty cool promotion for a local spot. They bought our hotel rooms, did the pre-fight interviews, commentators. They did the pay-per-view and stuff. Belt is super sweet, like super heavy, cool looking belts. So Nightmare Promotions is especially once you're just getting started in your career. I think that's an awesome place to try to get a fight at.
Yeah, what's that like getting to fight? Not only in Ohio, of course, which has and Now Kentucky has different rules where Ohio you weigh in same day. Kentucky you get to weigh in day before. You throw head kicks. I don't know if any promoters let you throw elbows, but the
Not
promoter
yet.
can let you decide if they if they want to throw elbows, if they want to pay those hospital bills.
Yeah.
What's it like getting kind of you get kind of two different rule sets too of like you get the Ohio rules where it's slightly different, but then kind of even more like another half step up toward pro in Kentucky.
Yeah, that's why I love it. I love taking those fights there. One the day before weigh-ins is awesome. Like, I mean, I actually, this last fight was at 85. We couldn't find a title fight at 170, so they're like, if you're open to a 185 title fight, we have a guy. And I was like, all right, yeah, let's take it. Does not matter to me, either weight class. But so this time I didn't get to really enjoy it because I was like, it's almost my natural body weight. I weighed like 190 the day before, so we just cut like 5 pounds of water weight. It was super easy. But when I cut to 70 for that second fight, like that was like, wow, I was like, I could get used to this. I mean, even in Ohio, we get 6 or 7 hours, and I'm more used to wrestling weight cuts where I was making 174 in college and, make weight at 7 a.m. And like I said, you're starting at 9 in the morning, 9:30 at the latest. So it's very quick turnaround. So even in Ohio, it's a little bit nicer, but especially in Kentucky and with those head kicks and those leg kicks, and you can even throw knees to the face. So it gives me a very good feel of what it's going to be like a little bit more when we turn pro. You know what I mean? Even though I haven't been able to really go a distance in a fight, I would like to, and be able to throw a head kick or have a guy throw a head kick at me and block it, just so we're prepared for those things when we turn pro. Because I feel a lot of these guys, like, I'm from Columbus, so I see a lot of Columbus fighters and follow a lot of them, and a lot of them just fight at Ohio Combat League, which is a great promotion. Don't get me wrong, they do a really good job. But I think it's also really important to try and, branch out to other promotions in other states and get different looks, especially as an amateur. Like, you don't want to be not focused, like you've never been kicked in the head before. You've taken 10 amateur fights or however many fights, and then you turn pro. You're not ready to block head kicks yet. You're getting kicked in the head, and you're like, oh, I've never had to block that, especially a raw without a shin guard. You know what I mean? So I just feel like that's very important to try to branch out. And that's what my coach is real big on. He thinks we're going to have to probably start traveling now for me because, as a wrestler, you know what I mean? A lot of guys strikers, especially a lot of times they don't like fighting wrestlers. So to be a wrestler that also has 2 TKOs and a knockout, it's going to get hard, especially to find, these local fights and stuff like that even at the amateur level. So, I'm ready to go wherever. A lot of my teammates have fought in California and Florida. So, coach goes everywhere. So, I just wait. I wait for him to, I walk into practice. He's like, hey, you're fighting. I'm like, yes, sir. Whatever you say, I'm ready to go whenever. You can wake me up at 12 o'clock at night. I'm ready to go out of a dead sleep.
That's such a good mindset, because I feel like a lot of guys, I mean, to be able to mentally get yourself prepared to be able to fight in a cage is one thing, but to be able to be ready at a moment's notice is another thing. And the other thing too is putting the trust in your coach, as well, and knowing that he's not going to put you in a situation where
Yeah.
he doesn't think you're going to be successful. So one other thing I wanted to ask you about, I know you mentioned your mom. I was reading another interview that you did. I know your grandfather was also a big influence on you
My
as well.
biggest fan, man.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about that. And I know, unfortunately, he passed away earlier this year, but still pretty cool that that he kind of got at least the idea that you were going to transition into MMA.
Yeah. So that's actually like very powerful to me. That's my grandpa is my main motivator. He was my biggest fan all growing up. I think I talked about in the interview a little bit. I didn't really grow up with any, I had uncles and stuff like that, but they're kind of in and out of jail, a lot of drug use and problems in my family, alcoholism, things like that. Dad was not around. So all I really had was my grandfather. I remember that was the man I was throwing a football with in the backyard. You know what I mean? Took me to my first football game, first practice, first wrestling practice, first, he was there at everything. My mom did a lot too, obviously, but my mom with work and everything. So like these practices and games and stuff, like my mom would have to work sometimes during the game. My grandpa would never miss a game ever. He was my biggest supporter and biggest fan. I remember he even told me one time, he's like, I haven't gone on vacation in 10 years. And I was like, why? And he was like, because I use all my vacation time at work to come watch your tournaments and come watch your matches. And I was like, wow. I tell this story all the time too. For example, my senior year, my goal is always to win a state title in high school. I actually fell more short of that goal than I did my junior year. And I remember feeling like a bit of a failure, you know what I mean? And just like embarrassed to be, embarrassed for myself, my family. I feel like I embarrassed myself and, my team and everything. And I remember laying in bed the next day. It was about 11 in the morning, and I was just laying there like hating myself in a dark, pitch black room, no TV, no nothing. I'm just like looking at the ceiling like, wow, that's it. And my mom was at work that morning, and I remember hearing a knock on the door at about 11:30, and I was like, yeah. And he was like, hey, buddy, can I come in? And I was like, yeah. Like, what's up? Opens the door. He's like, hey, how are you? And I feel like a lot of grandpas or, dads or whatever will do that. Like, you're not in a good mood, but they still ask, how are you? And I'm like, not good, grandpa, not very good. And he's like, well, I was thinking maybe I could take you shopping. And I was like, I mean, I really appreciate that, love you, but I don't know, I just don't feel like really going out today. And for the next 2 or 3 minutes, he just begs me, like, please just let's go to Dick's. Let me get you some shoes. Da 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 da. I'm like, I give in. I'm like, I'm not gonna just kick you out. So I'm like, all right, yeah, we can go, grandpa. And he ends up like, he was always that person, took me school shopping every year and stuff like that. So he's like, you need that. Why don't you get 2 pairs of shoes? And he ended up spending between Kohl's and Dick's. He spent $1,300 just out of nowhere. And that's like something I was like, wow, like I can be a loser in my eyes, you know what I mean? In other people's eyes, but he always just, saw me as a winner, you know what I mean? And that meant so much to me. So when I lost him, it was very sudden. He had a fibrosis of the lung, and that came up November of 2023, and it was going to be treatable. But unfortunately, before they could get him the proper medication and diagnose exactly what kind of fibrosis of the lung it was, he got pneumonia. So, and that was actually in the opposite lung. So he had the pneumonia and the fibrosis in the other lung, and they just kind of simultaneously attacked his body. And he was in the hospital for about 3 weeks when he got pneumonia. And it was very, out of nowhere. And we didn't find out until that he was going to pass away until 6 days. He found out on a Monday, you're not gonna make it. Basically, we can put you on a ventilator, but he didn't want to do that. He didn't want to put my mom through that and all of us through that. So he just wanted to go naturally. And he passed away the day before Easter. And that, that really put me in a very dark place. And it's actually weird because that's the same time I found a week after I came into demolition for the first time was when my grandpa was put in ICU. And, they told him like, you're not going to make it. So it was a really, really hard time. But I feel like I'm definitely turning it into a positive now. I'm just, every time I wake up, I ask myself, why am I waking up for 7:15 in the morning practice when I have class at 9 in the morning too, and then practice again after that and maybe work. And I just think about, I'm like, cause I told him, I remember one of the last good talks we had. I told him, he's like, talking to me about MMA, like, cause I was supposed to fight June 15th. So we're talking about that. And I looked at him, I told him, I was like, I'm going to change mom's life. I'm going to change my kid's life, and I'm going to glorify your name. And everybody's going to know, everybody's going to know I did it because of you. You know what I mean? Cause I truly would not be the man I am. I would not be the person I am at all. I would not have the work ethic. I would not have anything like I do, if it wasn't for him. So, I'm just forever grateful for that man. And, I cannot wait to meet him again. He promised me he'd be waiting at heaven gates for me. So, yeah.
That's awesome, man. I saw that, and I knew it was,
yeah, right there. That'll hit my heart chords. There's not many things that'll make me cry. I promise. Yeah. Wasn't my intention to do on a podcast, but that's one thing that'll get me teared up for sure.
I mean, so let's talk about some positive stuff in the future. You are 3-0, 3 months. You're not even 21 years old yet. You can't legally buy alcohol.
No, I haven't even got to buy beer after a fight yet. My coach was funny in Kentucky. My coach was like, "You guys want to go to the casino and watch the fights?" And I'm like, "Coach, I'm 20." He's like, "Shit." I was like, "Yep, all right."
So what's your plan? Let's say we check in like, let's say a year. Where do you think you're going to be? Do you want to defend your title? Do you want to be, on the verge of going pro? Where do you think you're going to be a year from now?
So me and coach, we talk about this all the time. Plan is to turn pro by next summer. I would like to turn pro by the time I hit a year of training full-time MMA, which would be right about the beginning of April, right when after everything with my grandfather, I was finally able to be back in Tiffin full-time. And that's when it started. Was right in the beginning of April. It was that first week of April, I believe, or it would have been the second week of April. And really, it would be, I mean, technically, it would be 9 months into my career. You know what I mean? So I could say, you know, I turned pro as quick as women give birth. So yeah, that's the goal, honestly, by next summer for sure. I just pray to God, you know, we can find fights, everything goes smoothly. It's not too much of a struggle. And I would actually, I don't know if I'll be going back to Cage Wars. We talked about February 1st. So then I would like to double up and win 2 belts from there and win the welterweight division too. Because like I said, that's my natural weight class. I'm only 5'10", 5'10 and a half, I like to say sometimes. I'm 5'10" though, so you know, I'm not the longest guy, especially for, you know, 185 pounds. So welterweight is definitely my weight class. And someday maybe 55. I don't know. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. That would be an awful weight cut. But you know, if I have all the right tools and, you know, if it makes sense, and that's what we'll do. So yeah, I would like to win 2 belts and the 1 belt being in the welterweight division, whether that's with Nightmare Promotions or not. It doesn't matter to me. But I just want to get, you know, I'd say 3 more fights, maybe 4 more fights by April, and then, you know, get that pro card, and we're ready to take off from there. So
yeah. And I gotta ask, is that your dog right there?
Yeah, he's a handful. He's a 7-month-old German Rottweiler. His name's Rocco. He's got the body of a full-size dog already, but the brain of a puppy still. So we're working on it. But no house accidents since July. He's been fully potty trained. So
that's awesome.
I think I'm doing a pretty good job. Right now he's trying to throw his toy at me because he's being impatient. No.
I love dogs, man. Usually my dog, I don't know if you've seen the podcast, usually she's like laying right behind me on
I'll show him
the bed behind me.
Come here, big boy.
Oh yeah, he's a
big boy.
Yeah, beautiful dog.
Thank you. Yeah, $800 off Facebook Marketplace. So I think I got him for a pretty good price.
Awesome, man. So like I said, coming off a win, the new Nightmare Promotions middleweight champ, man. I'm excited to see you back in there. We got some awards coming up at the end of the year, so maybe check out your name.
I'm coming for that Emmy Fight of the Year. I'm coming for it. I think one of my biggest competitors right now is going to be like I talked about him earlier, Charlie Cleveland. He's also 3-0 with 3 finishes. One of his finishes, 2 in the first, and then one in the second, I believe. Yeah, 2 in the first, 1 in the second. He's got a fight in the LFA though already, so he's got that leg up on me. But when I was thinking about it, I was like, well, I started fighting in July. You started in March. So it's kind of, I think he'll be one of the top runners with me for that award. You know, I would be very honored and would love to win that. So I'm coming for that too.
Awesome. Yeah. Actually, usually in October is when I start looking and start putting stuff together. I mean, I keep track all year because it's just,
you do a great job. I've been following your page for a couple months. So you everything, Fighters of the Month, all that stuff. You put
yeah. Thank you, man.
I appreciate it. It takes people like you to really grow this sport and, you know, let other people see it, you know, doing these interviews and stuff. I think it's awesome what you do.
Yeah, like I said, I've always just been a fan more so than anything. But yeah, man, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We'll see you when your next fight is. Of course, we'll share it on Ohio MMA News. But congrats on the win.
Thank you so much.
You don't have any black eyes or anything to worry about.
No shiners yet. I don't think my face will get ugly here before too long. We're not going to be pretty forever. That's the goal. So
all right, that is the unbreakable Brayden Benson, 3-0 amateur fighter, man. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. We'll see you around.
All right, we'll be back next week with another episode.